What's up, guys? Reinhartz, Astrologer. It's time to do our Mercury retrograde discussion. Isn't this cute? My shit is freezing. Not funny, computer. Anyway, so today for the record is the 19th. On the 8th of July is when the shadow period began for Mercury. Shadow period consists of the degrees in which once Mercury goes direct, it's going to double loop and basically do a repeat. That's actually the phenomenon where deja vu comes from. But, you know, just besides the psychic inclination sort of stuff. Okay, so July 26, 18 is when Mercury officially goes retrograde. Retrograde for Mercury usually lasts about 2.5 to 3 weeks, depending on the time. It happens every 2 to 3 months. All major planets, including some fictitious points, do go retrograde. The reason why there's such an infamous, stereotype for Mercury retrograde is a couple of things. First off, Mercury has a significant impact on your cognition, your mental thought processes, and because Mercury itself affects EMF, your mind, and those kind of vibrations in general, it's been proven through astronomy and radio astronomy in particular that Mercury's orbit and changes therein actually directly impacts any kind of signal interference with communication lines and satellites. So that's why everybody is more aware of Mercury retrograde, and that's why most people give it such a stigma. A lot of the exterior planets, or the generational planets, the ones that are like Jupiter and beyond, those ones actually have a significant duration for retrograde cycles, but again, because it doesn't have as much of an impact on modern concepts of daily life, we don't really worry about it too much, because as a matter of fact, not only when Mercury is retrograde is that going on, but we're also having Chiron, Neptune, the nodes, Pluto, Mars, Vesta, Saturn, all retrograde, and Eris, and so we have significant retrograde planets going on. So again, when everybody goes, "Oh my God, it's Mercury retrograde," it's specifically because of how it affects people. Infects is more of a Neptune thing, by the way. So the duration of this will go from July 26th till August 19th, right up to Virgo season, which people are going to make a lot of awful decisions as per usual. Mercury retrograde is notorious for that, and then people are really going to give themselves a hard time once we switch gears into Virgo season and everybody starts being self-critical and stuff. So that's going to be really, really testy for some people. That's something to be aware of. So we're going to look at the chart for the moment when Mercury goes actually retrograde. Let's see. Animate. Weeks. Why not? Alright, so on the 25th, it goes stationary. I'm fairly sure most of you are aware of at least how that works. If you're not, I guess I could give you a debrief. So, when here's the sun, here's Mercury going around, here's the Earth going around here. So Mercury is faster than the Earth because it's closer to the sun, right? So when basically the Earth passes Mercury, it looks like it's going backwards, just like when you're on a train track and you see another when you're pulling away, it looks like the train next to you is going backwards. It's the same kind of phenomena. The indicator is that when Mercury is close to the Earth, that's when the electromagnetic interference starts to happen. So when it's stationary is when it looks like it's retrograde, it's when the Earth is passing it. When it's stationary is when it basically Mercury is caught up and it looks like it's at dead center with that. And then when it's direct is when it continues to blaze past the Earth like nobody's business. So that's, it's actually when the Mercury retrograde starts. As a matter of fact, the stationary thing, when it goes stationary, that there's more of an intense electromagnetic interference than opposed to the middle of the duration of the Mercury retrograde. Keep that in mind. But we're going to look at the chart for the moment, like I said, to give you a breakdown of what will likely transpire in the themes for everybody collectively. Oh, probably not go by minutes, hours. Here we go, sorry. Yeah. Hey, this is the only time I actually get the opportunity to blame Mercury for something. Even though, yes, don't blame the planets for your behavior, but you can use it to rationalize it. Okay, so keep going forward. It's stationary, 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 stationary. It goes stationary at 23 degrees, by the way, just in case anybody want to know, since I'm staring at it for a good minute. Okay. People may be asking why I'm being so meticulous about this. As a matter of fact, when you look at where Mercury is the moment that it goes retrograde, it can reveal a lot of the general themes for the next 2.5 to 3 weeks while it is retrograde, which is what I'm going to be doing for you. So let's see. Shut my mouth. My Black Moon Loath is in my third house of, you know, Mercury, in Leo. So yeah, foot and mouth syndrome. There we go. Okay, so it went. Do I really gotta go down to minutes? I gotta go down to minutes. Alrighty. So this does differ with geographic locations, but since I'm in the Pacific Northwest, the Pacific Standard Time Zone is the one that I'm going to be referencing for this. So most of what I say will be dead on for anybody who's in the Pacific Time Zone or within 100 miles latitude than me, but yeah, just keep that in mind. If you ever want to know, you can do this as well. If you like live in Europe or something else, you can do the same thing that I'm doing. Just look at the exact moment that it goes retrograde and examine the houses where it's placed. So, funny story. Mercury is actually in the 6th house of Mercury, the Virgo. House anyway. Sorry, I know I'm trying to be very thorough, but every Mercury retrograde video, I sound like a total ditz because I kind of am. Mercury's my key planet, so the electromagnetic, again, we're going into the shadow period, which we have another week, but yeah, it affects me substantially. It's my kryptonite, more or less. That's why I'm so aware of what happens when Mercury goes retrograde and which is the worst parts. So, we have Mercury in the 6th house, so that's going to be associated with people's work and service, so your actual job. So this could translate actually to the self having issues with their job. There could potentially be, where's Pluto at? Pluto in the 11th house. There might actually be some sort of, when we're looking at it on the Plutonic kind of fatalistic perspective, or Plato perspective, which is like the fatalistic stuff, people could be dying on their commutes to work. People might end up getting fired from their jobs, primarily to do with either some sort of abuse of higher authority. For example, the Papa John's guy is a great example of that. Things like that will continue to happen throughout this Mercury retrograde and kind of escalate. And for the current now houses, which will give us the general theme of what's going on, we have Neptune on the ascendant with Chiron and Hygeia. So this does emphasize that there's going to be a substantial increase of illness with this. Leo has to do with the heart and with blood. So people could be having issues of that nature. Cancer is ruling the 5th house of self, so since Leo is the ruler with Mercury right now, that could insinuate that people have they either get sick at home, they get sick because of their home, or primarily could have stomach issues as well. People could be getting stomach viruses, or it could be primarily diet, because again, with Saturn being in Capricorn, and Pluto also being in Capricorn, which it's been for a long time now, we're continually dealing with people having to figure out how to cap their excessive gluttony kind of behaviors. If you have an excess or Jupiterian kind of habitual behavior, that definitely will come back and get you with this. When we go to the 4th house, we have Hades in Cancer in the 4th house. This is in a grand trine, by the way, with the Ascendant and Neptune, as well as Jupiter in the 9th house. So this is reinforcing that there's going to be some sort of communication-wise, actually, with the sociological institutions abusing authority with information. This is very typical. As a matter of fact, I find it fascinating. Every single time Obama would come out and say something really outlandish, I'm not trying to get super political, but when he would come out and basically try to, not say something super outlandish, but he'd come out and say, okay, so this shooting happened. We need to push for gun control, or this many people are sick. We need to give universal health care. When he's trying to actually, manipulate people's ideas and their own, values or whatever, and for them to question themselves, he particularly did this all the time when Mercury was retrograde. If you're not aware of this, Benjamin Franklin was an astrologer. He created the Farmer's Almanac. The founding fathers, as well as people secretly throughout the intricate deep state, have astrologers, as well as Wall Street. So it's no secret, and I guarantee you he has one. I know he has to have one. It's not just him, obviously. But this will be a prime time for fake news. I mean, I know fake news is everywhere, but this will be a prime time for them to really be pushing for something that would be completely out of bounds of abusing their authority. That is overemphasized with Eris, Uranus, and Juno all being in the 2nd house. Whatever they're going to say, they're going to try to be pushing actual civil unrest, sociological chaos, or civil war. I'm not saying that that's happening right away, but this is a continuation, and this is a synchronistic thing that's happening, that they're pushing for this. When we look at the 7th house, the repercussions of that grand trine, we have Venus and Ceres and the polar ascendant all in Virgo. Mention too that trans-Pluto is in Virgo as well, although that is in the 6th house. So, as a matter of fact, despite the efforts of trying to quote-unquote brainwash people or persuade them in some way, shape, or form, it will actually end up backfiring more or less for half of everyone. And I say half of everyone, the ones that are still clinging on to the narratives of the status quo in the mainstream media, more or less. With Ceres being conjunct with Venus, people are going to actually start seeing the error in their ways, and with that being a stellium of Virgo, Virgo is very critical, Virgo is very analytic, and Virgo is very quick to condemn or pick things apart. So this will be a great time. Actually, as a matter of fact, what will end up happening is that the news will continue to be very aggressive as they have been, or the narrative will be, and I'm trying not to be super political about this per se, because it's just supposed to be a Mercury video, but primarily the people who speak out the most on Twitter really, really viciously, politically wise, are going to be the ones that are going to continue to aggressively push this, knowing that it's Mercury retrograde and it's the prime time to be doing that. And as a matter of fact, it's actually going to backfire and make people, as they feel besides themselves with their normal thought process, they're going to go, wait, I'm so blown away, none of this makes any sense to me. There will still be a continuation of them trying to cap down on social media. I'm not saying any of that will per se transpire during this Mercury retrograde. It could, but that's going to be a continuation thing until November, because Jupiter's still in Scorpio, and that's controlling, and a facet of Pluto controlling the information that's spread worldwide. We have nothing in the 8th house. The 10th house is the other now house. Sorry, I kind of got sidetracked. My bad. In the 10th house, we have Saturn, Vesta, and the MC, obviously. We have Vesta that's retrograde conjunct with the MC in Sagittarius, and it's right. The Saturn's also in Capricorn right there, retrograde at 3 degrees, but it's still in Capricorn. This would emphasize that people are going to be reflecting upon Trump, the current administration, and the current hierarchy of the elitists and politicians in general. That is also trining to that Uranus, as well as it's trining to the trans-Pluto thing. So that goes into what I said about the Virgo stellium, because it's in Virgo, about people rethinking their own personal bias or views on what is being fed to them. And the 11th house is a future house. It's about sociological institutions, but it's also about chaos. Fascinating thing about chaos is that we have Mars, the Earth symbol, Black Moon Lilith, the Moon, and Pluto all in that. So whatever actually is ignited, more or less, by the beginning of this Mercury retrograde, when we're talking about sociological, it's going to be uncontainable. So even if we were to assume that there's some sort of puppet master behind all of this that thinks they're going to be able to hush the masses and, basically antagonize the masses at their will and be able to contain it, is completely delusional. So whatever actually is provoked as a result of this Mercury retrograde time frame is going to be very, very dramatic and out of control, and people are going to get very emotionally riled up about this. Pluto in the 11th house. Neptune. Uranus. Aquarius, Mars. In a T-square. Pallas, the Sun, squaring to Uranus and Eris. Primarily Uranus, actually. Eris is too far. To Uranus. To the Moon and Black Moon Lilith. That either insinuates that there's going to be some sort of abuse of power. Primarily, it could kill people. That I already emphasized on the abuse of power thing, but for some reason, I'm getting this inclination that a shooting could happen. Or that it's like the Parkland shooting thing all over again. The authorities knew about it, and they stood down and didn't intervene, so they could use the mass casualties as ammunition. Not supposed to be a pun, but I'm a smart ass. To push more of an agenda with guns. How much time am I at video-wise? 18 minutes. I think I'm just gonna cut it there. I could, go on, and I was gonna kind of break down the transits, but I guess I'll do that at request or something like that, because I think this is done. I'm gonna try to keep my videos to 20 minutes from now on. And yeah, so if you have any questions, comments, hate mail, comment below. Thank you.